Hello and welcome to taik18. I'm Adnan, and in this demo, we are going to discuss about medallion architecture in Microsoft Fabric. While I'm sharing my screen, if you're new to this channel or if you haven't subscribed yet, just click on the subscribe button and also press the bell icon to get the latest notifications. Now let's get started. All right, now let's get started. So lakehouse using medallion architecture in Microsoft Fabric. So first of all, we'll understand what is medallion architecture. And then we'll look into how we can implement this in Microsoft Fabric. So a recommended data design pattern used to organize data in a lakehouse logically. And series of data layers that denotes the quality of the data stored in the lakehouse. Actually, it has to be in a database or data warehouse, but here as we're using Microsoft Fabric, so we are considering this as a lakehouse. It's a kind of data storage. Helps in security and governing the data and complements dimensional modeling. That's the theoretical part. As you can look into the image here, on the left hand side, we have the source data. It can be from different sources. It can be from relational databases. It can be from IoT devices, or it can be from text or CSV file. Okay, so all these things we can ingest into a layer, which we call it as a bronze layer. So like we have in the Olympic medals, we have a bronze, silver, and gold. Similarly, the first stage, we are loading every data without any transformation as a raw data into the bronze layer. So once the bronze layer is there, and we'll pick the data from the bronze layer and do the small fine tunings wherever required, like column cleaning and other parts. And then if you want to add some other informations to that, we can add also that to the columns on the particular table. So we'll do that in a silver layer, and then we'll convert that silver layer into a gold layer, which is another storage location, which here it actually refers to real business use case scenario. So we'll structure the data based on the business need in order to develop the report further on. So this gold layer can be helpful in order to build a machine learning models using the data science in Microsoft Fabric, or we can also use Microsoft Power BI in order to build our BI reports on that. So this is how the medallion architecture refers to you. So we don't need to look for the information every time from the direct source itself. So it's a kind of standard process approach which we need to follow. It is not a kind of thumb rule that is compulsory. We need to adopt this in your organizations. It purely depends on your organizations. So this is a kind of standard practice which generally enterprises companies will use to work on that. But still, if you want to customize this, you can also customize that as well. So we'll talk about that in the future slides. So before to that, first let's understand the medallion architecture format, and we need to understand the delta lake here, because all the files are being stored into the lakehouse, and whatever the table which we have in the lakehouse is actually delta lake pocket file table. So delta lakehouse in Fabric are built on delta lake format, which natively support ACID property, atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability transactions. So we discussed this about in the previous video sessions. If you haven't seen that, I recommend you to watch that video as well in order to understand what is the ACID property here. And here, as you can see, it reduces the file listing operations, optimize the file skipping, and small file compaction and column burning, and also predict push down filtering. The main thing which I really like here is the versioning and the time travel. So it can keep a track of each and every changes which is happening to that table. If you want to go back to any previous version, you can also do that. I also made a video about this thing, how you can do the versioning, and how you can take the data from the versioning. Please go and check out that video as well. Or if you are going to watch this series continuously, then definitely you are going to capture everything about this topic. So now we will talk about the bronze, silver, and gold layer. So what is a bronze layer here? So the bronze or the raw layer of the medallion architecture is the first layer of the lakehouse. So it contains unvalidated data. It is the landing zone of all the data. The data is stored in the original format. If it is a semi-structured or unstructured data, everything has to be dumped over to that, because the beauty of the lakehouse is we cannot only use the tables, structured tables, you can also use the files inside to that. The files can be structured, or it can be semi-structured, or it can be unstructured data. So from that, we need to use it into different layer in order to transform further things. But the bronze layer is the kind of dumping of everything, kind of garbage here, because that's the thing which I call it up here. That's the similar term. If you throw the garbage, then the output also will be garbage here. So first of all, we'll throw the garbage here because it's kind of every data which you are keeping up in one single location here. And whereas for the silver layer, the silver or validated layer is the second layer of the lakehouse in the silver layer in the medallion architecture. So you validate and duplicate and refine your data and combine, merge, match, and clean the data. You build an enriched version of your data that can be trusted for downstream analytics. So upstream is basically the source and downstream is basically the machine learning models or Power BI in this case. So here the silver layer is actually we are taking the information from the bronze layer and fine tuning a little bit, validate those information if they are correct or not. And if you want to split something else, you want to split together everything here onto this one. So that's all the thing which you're going to do up here on the silver layer. Now, when it comes to the gold layer, the gold or entries layer is the third layer of the lakehouse in the medallion architecture. A highly refined aggregated data that provides analytics, machine learning, and production applications. So data model aligned with specific business and analytical needs. So here we can define to a different business domain to build based on the business requirement, and then we can use it for the further analytic purpose in Power BI or into machine learning models. So like I said in the beginning, so it is not a recommended that, I mean, it's recommended one to use the bronze, silver, and gold layer. But if you're in your organization, if you want to customize it furthermore, then also you can do that. Like for example, you want to add additional raw layer of the data, it can be before transformed into the bronze layer. You can also create that as a kind of raw layer, and from there you can use into the bronze layer. Or else if you want to add a kind of additional layer after the gold one, which is a platinum layer, which you can use that. So that has been further refined and enriched for a specific business use case. Let's say, for example, if you are building a data for your organizations, the gold contains everything for each and every department, for the sales, for the HR, and marketing and everything. But if you want to specifically build a separate lakehouse or a warehouse for marketing alone, for a sales separate, for HR separate, in that case, you can add a platinum layer separately, and then you can build a report on top of that. But that's not a recommended one. It's up to you that you can also make use of that use case. So now we talked about what is the structure of the medallion architecture here, but how we can able to implement this in Power BI. Right. So as you can see it here on this image, so here we have a data sources from different sources, and in the prepare and transform data, we have the layers bronze, silver, and gold here. And everything, as you're aware, Microsoft Fabric is backed by one lake, which is a kind of one lake for data, like we have it for OneDrive for our irregular files in Office 365. So similarly, we have this bronze, silver, and gold layer. Everything is backed by the one lake. So here you can see also an image on this, where we are defining here in the bronze, we don't see any image. And but for the silver and gold, we have a delta symbol here. So that actually refers to, in the bronze, we're going to have raw data itself. It can be files, it can be relational databases, it can be tables, or it can be anything, right? So we are not going to define specify anything here on the bronze layer. So when it comes to silver and gold layer, we are actually defining this has to be a delta lake table itself. So through this, actually, how we are going to bring from the bronze to silver and gold layer. So we have beautiful things in Microsoft Fabric that we can either use Apache Spark notebooks, we can also use Spark definitions, we can also use data flow Gen 2, we can also use copy activity in data pipeline. This is really an amazing thing in Microsoft Fabric, which I love, because if you are not familiar with any of the background, no need to worry about that. You have other tools and technologies where you can make use of that, and then you can build your reporting or whatever the further reporting purpose. Cool. So after building a gold layer here with the help of transformation from different tools, workflows which we have, and finally we can build a report in Power BI. And for further analytic purpose, we also have a SQL endpoints in lakehouse, also in the warehouse. We can make use of that as well. But here, as you can see on the image, we have a bronze, silver, and gold, everything defined in the lakehouse itself. But for example, you want to use the bronze and silver into lakehouse, and for the gold, you want to build in to a warehouse, that is also applicable. You can also make use of that. So it purely depends on how we can use that, customize our environment here. But this is how the holistic picture looks like for the medallion architecture in Fabric. Now, to implement a medallion architecture, what are the ways which I have? Like I mentioned, the Apache Spark notebook is an ideal choice. If you are bringing a large amount of the data to transform and load into the lakehouse, then that's the first option, because I have made these analysis in the copy activity using pipelines, also use the data for Gen 2, also use the notebooks Apache Spark on that. So out of these three things, I feel like Apache Notebook has much better in performance if you're bringing large amount of the data. So that's why I recommend you to use this one. But if you're not familiar with the language, no need to worry about that because it contains multiple languages, which I covered on the other videos here. So you can make use of that one also. But I recommend you to learn Python to work on that. Anyway, but here, if you look into this one, what happens in that layer? So the bronze is ingest the raw data. And what tools you can use? You can use the pipelines, we can use the data flows, Gen 2, and you can also use notebook here. In the silver, you can cleanse and validate the data, where you can use data flow and notebooks. In the gold, we have additional transformation and modeling, where you can use SQL endpoints, or you can also use dataset, or you can also use same again data flow Gen 2 or notebooks as well in order to build further things on that. Like here you can see on the image, we have a lakehouse on bronze and silver, but for the warehouse, the gold, we have it in the warehouse. Yeah, that's why we can customize based on our business need here. So the beauty of the Fabric is we can also query and report it using the lakehouse, right? So we can have a SQL endpoint in the lakehouse where we can query the data and then we can customize based on that. But the thing here, we cannot able to write back into the lakehouse, but we can just read only information from the lakehouse. And then we can build our Power BI semantic models using the view structures if you want to create, and then we can build the Power BI report on top of that. So if you're building a Power BI report, we have a different mode here. Usually we used to have import and direct query itself, right? So that's the thing. The import is refers to it loads all the data into the Power BI semantic model. The direct query refers to it is going to fetch every data into the source and then get back information here, right? But here the direct is actually the combination of both the things. You will get the import like performance, but it actually a direct query here. So it's going to directly reach the data lake tables in the Fabric Lakehouse, and then it will show it in the Power BI report here. That's the beauty of the direct lake here. There are certain limitations also of that. So actually, I covered that in the future videos. But please make sure to check out the Microsoft documentation for further information. Yeah, medallion architecture, it depends purely on that how you can go to customize based on your business needs. So what are the things which you need to consider in order to further for your lakehouse? So there are a couple of considerations which you need to keep in mind when managing your lakehouse, including how to use secure the data and how you are going to version and control of your data. So first of all, you need to handle your continuous integration, continuous deployment, which is we can make use of in Git integration or DevOps integration in Microsoft Fabric. So first of all, we have a three different layers. We'll talk about the secure layer first, and then we'll go for the version controlling. So here we have three different layers. We have a gold layer, silver layer, and bronze layer. Right. So restrict access to the gold layer for read-only purpose, emphasizing the importance of minimal permission. Those who are the data engineers or the developers who are going to work on that, then they only need to have access as a kind of read and write to their gold layer. Or else other people, those who are going to access only the information from the Power BI semantic model, they just need to have a read-only access to all this information if they want to access directly to the lakehouse. Right, so that's the limitation which you need to provide in order to get that. But for the silver layer here, decide whether users will be allowed to build upon the silver layer, balancing flexibility and security. So here also you need to make sure that you're going to provide only necessary actions. Only for those people, those who need access to build or transform the data on the silver layer. And whereas for the bronze layer, restrict access to the bronze layer and read-only purpose, emphasizing importance and minimal permission. Here is also an important thing because even for the bronze layer, you said it's going to be a garbage, so why we need to give restrict access to that? It can be open to everyone. No, it's not like that. The reason is because if you are getting any data from different sources and if you have give access to all the other peoples, there may be chances that they are going to manipulate the data for their safety and for the anything on that. Let's say, for example, if you are keeping a production information and production output on that, and they actually less output on a particular day, so they can also modify the data in order to present it rightly on the Power BI report. That's not a right way. So in order to do that, you need to restrict the data into the bronze layer, and then you need to give only permission those who are knowledgeable on this, how you can access from bronze to silver and silver to gold layer here. So these are the things you need to keep in mind, how you are going to share this data information with other peoples on your organizations. And also, we need to also keep in mind about the CI/CD, which we have the version controlling options in Power BI. That's an amazing part where you can make use of that. They are actually integrating each and every workloads day by day, and it will come everything in future. But for now, you can also make use of the existing workload with these supports for your CI/CD pipeline here. So now we'll talk about the real demo, how you can implement this in Microsoft Fabric. And if you're not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel and then see you in the next demo. Hello and welcome to taik18. I'm Mohammed Adnan, and in this video, we are going to discuss about medallion architecture in Fabric. So this is the fourth part of this video series. So we are going to cover that. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I recommend you to subscribe to my channel and then share this video with others so that they can also learn from it. And also don't forget to press the bell icon to get the latest notifications. All right, so I shared my screen. So now you can see we have this number of labs, which is we are now in the medallion architecture, the fourth lab. So we have seen about how we can create a lakehouse in our previous sessions and also how we can create notebooks and all. So I just want to save some time and then we can directly jump into the existing one, which is the lakehouse. Let's assume that we have a lakehouse created here. If you are not familiar with that, you can just click on new and then you need to click on lakehouse, but make sure you are into the data engineering workloads. We have a number of workloads here. And so we can select here data engineering, and from here you can select that options. So once you click on that, and then you need to click, just give the name of the lakehouse. It is going to open up this lakehouse for you. And behind the scene is going to create a data set and SQL endpoint for you in order to access your lakehouse. So right now you can see we have this number of tables, which is available on this one. And also we have generally in the lakehouse two folders. One is tables, another is files. So first of all, we need to work on the file. And today, actually, we are going to discuss about medallion architecture, right? So first of all, we'll just go through what is medallion architecture here. So medallion architecture is nothing but creating our data in such a manner that it can be helpful and reusable in other scenarios. Let's assume that you are getting a data from different kind of sources. We have a structured data, unstructured data, on stream analytics kind of thing. So everything you want to dump into one single place, and from there you want to fine tune your data for further reporting purpose. In that case, you can just keep all your data, raw data, into a layer which is called as bronze layer. So generally the medallion refers to the medals here, which we have it of bronze, silver, and gold, right? So similarly, that kind of approach it is going to happen here. So whatever the data which is raw data coming from your different sources, you have to keep it into your bronze layer. And from that, you need to do a little bit of fine tuning, remove unnecessary columns and remove top and bottom rows if you required, change the data type of the column. Similar kind of small fine tunings, you need to do it on the silver layer. But when it comes to bronze layer, then you can also add another layer for that when you're going to really build your Power BI report on top of that, or you want to use for another analytic purpose. So this is the structure which is happening and generally follows by other companies as well. So this is not a kind of compulsory you need to follow. It purely depends on how you want to work on with your data. So it is recommended to do step-by-step process because you don't want to ingest your data again from your source if you're doing something wrong on your existing data. So at least it had to be layer on bronze, silver, and gold for that. Some companies, they also have additional layer of platinum. They used to call that. It is because of they want to create domain specific, like HR report separate, sales report separate, and finance report separate. So in that case, they need to create different additional layers. So that's the reason they also used as a medallion for additional, which is the platinum layer. So it purely depends on how you want to do that. But a general approach is these three layers: bronze, silver, and gold. So now we are taking up here as an example the bronze layer, which we call it as Lakehouse DP600 Medallion Architecture 01. And here we have a folder of bronze. Either you can create three different lakehouse. One is for the bronze, another is for the silver, another is for the gold, or you can do everything on this single lakehouse itself. Here in this scenario, I'm just created into one single lakehouse where you can see I just use the files and then I created another folder here. When you click on this icon, then you can see a new subfolder. So I created a bronze here, and in the bronze I clicked here and then upload as usual how we did in the previous series, right? So I just clicked here and then upload and then upload files or folder. I just uploaded manually here. If you want to ingest your data from a different source, then we can also cover that in future sessions. You can use your data pipeline or data flow Gen 2 in that case to ingest your data from different sources and dump it here into the lakehouse. All right, so this is how the flow, and we have the source files loaded here. And after that, what is the thing? So we have a multiple things to do in Fabric. That's the beauty of Fabric. If you're familiar with any other tools, you can do your tools, you work on the tools and do your job. So there is no dependency about you had to use this one, you had to use this one. We have plenty of options available in Fabric, then we can use that. Either you can use Dataflow Gen 2 here, or you can also use Notebook for that. So here in this case, if I go back to my workspace, here I just used here two different notebooks in order to create the result. So one is actually with the help of notebooks, I use here silver, which is it's going to transform from bronze to silver in one notebook and then load the data into the lakehouse itself. As you can see it here, I have it here sales silver as a single source here. What actually I'm doing up here, I'm just combining these three files and then loading into one delta table, which is a sales silver. And from the sales silver, I'm using another notebook to convert the sales silver data from silver layer to gold layer, which is specific of four different tables here, which is dim customer, gold, dim dead, gold. I just given as a reference for that. So that's the reason here. So in my reporting purpose, I can create another semantic model and then I can just take up whatever the tables I need for my reporting purpose. That's how the whole scenario here. So let's open up the notebook now and then look for that. So either you can create a notebook from here itself, so create here and then open a new notebook, or else you can also use from here itself. So I'm just referring these things from this Learn document of Microsoft. This is the essential series which I'm running up here. So you can also refer to this link in order to get the files from there and everything, the reference also here. All right, so this is now connecting to my lakehouse, and these are all the documents here where you can see this link here and from where I have taken up here. So whenever you copy from the source, make sure that you don't have any space before to that. If you have any space before to that, then these things will not work actually. All right, so I'll just go one by one here. This is a Spark notebook and it contains multiple cells here, but you can see it here cells. And on the top, you can see this is actually running on Python Spark here. So in the Spark, we can use Scala, SQL, or I'm actually familiar with the SQL, so I can also use the SQL statement here. But Python is actually simple itself, so it is good to learn Python. It is a versatile language. It can be consumed on many different scenarios. All right, so here if I look into this code here, I just copy and paste from the document here. So first of all, we are just importing the necessary libraries from the PySpark, necessary functions, and then we are taking up here a schema, just a schema of the structure of the table, which we call it here order schema. And these are the column names and data type which we are referring up here, sales order number, string type. So similarly, we are adding up all these things here. And then after that, import all files from the bronze folder to lakehouse to a data frame. So what is a data frame? Data frame here refers to in the notebook, the Spark is actually, if you call it from the SQL, it's kind of CD, I can say, temporary view for that. So I'm considering that table here into that view, and then from that view, I'm loading up all the other things or a temporary table for that. So here I'm using a data frame and then reading the file, which is available on the files bronze folder, and it is a CSV format. So if I go back to my lakehouse, now you can see I have a files bronze folder, and inside to that I have three CSV files. So these three files which I'm referring up here, and then loading the order schema on this schema, order schema, and then I am saying that there is a header on that is in every file here. So and this is a CSV format. It's going to read that and load it into a data frame, which is actually going to load the data here. And finally, if I run this one now, and finally you can see it's display.df.head 10, which is it's going to load only the top 10 records from this data frame here. That's what is going to show up the result here. When you run this notebook and start to run this one step here, initially it will take a little bit time because it need to open up the engine behind the scene, and that's the reason it will take some time. But after that, it will run fast itself. So I can see, let me see if I have a space here. Yeah, as I said on this earlier, if you have a space in the beginning of this statement, then this will throw an error. So that's the reason you need to make sure whenever you're working on that, if you're copying something from the website, then you don't have any space before to that. Now you can see it is loaded into data frame and it has showing up here top 10 records on the data frame, and this is the result it has. That's fine. And after that, I'm creating additional here. If you just mouse over below to the result of the previous stage, you get these two options, code and markdown. Markdown is nothing but you can just type any text content. Code is something which is you're typing up here the code here. All right. In the next one, what I'm doing up here, I still have the space here. So let's remove the space. So still loading up these necessary functions from the PySpark. example here to pass the literal or constant value. Or I'm also referring the column, current timestamp, input file name. These are all kind of functions or libraries which you need to call from the PySpark. I'm adding up the data frame and still I'm adding up additional 3 columns to that. So add column is flag, file name, and created timestamp. So for the file name, I'm using the input file name, which is actually the name of the file name. And after that, we need to use the conditions also here. When column order date is less than this particular date, then it is true, otherwise it has to false. So that's why it's just creating additional columns inside to that. And also created timestamp, which I'm using the current timestamp here. Finally, update customer name to unknown if the customer name null or empty. So here, if I go up to the result here we have a customer name column. If the customer name column is null, then I'm updating the value here to be unknown. That's the reason it's showing up here, and it's giving the static value on that particular column here. So what I'm doing up here, adding additional 3 columns and updating the columns for this purpose. So if you run this one, it's going to run this result, and we'll not see any results here because we have not used the option about display df head 10. So that's the reason. If you, unless we are going to use that, it's not going to display anything here. It just says message about yes, this one. So if you want to display that, then you can write a separate cell, or you can also add the end of this one, display df head 10. Then it's going to load you the top 10 record from that particular years. And here you can see there is no null value here. That's why it's showing up here like this. But on the right side, you can see 3 additional columns is added here: is flag, created timestamp, and modified timestamp, and the file name here. These are the columns which is added here on top of that. And next here, what we are doing up here, again adding importing necessary libraries here for this SQL statement, and also we need to write back to this table here, right? So we are creating additional data table, create if it is not necessary, which is a sales silver. So initially we are adding up all the CSV file into one single data frame, and then we are adding up another one, which is a proper sales silver, creating that schema here, sales.silver, and then we are loading this data into that folder, into that table actually. So creating a schema for now. If not exists, it is going to create that. And after that, we are updating the existing record and insert a new record based on the condition defined by columns, sales order number, order date here. So now this code is actually a bit long, but it is easy to understand here. No need to worry about that. So if I go one by one here for this particular code, let me just check if I have, I don't have any space before to that. All right, so star delta tables.import is just I'm that loading up the necessary functions here. And here, this is basically also a data frame temporary view, which is a variable. And then delta table dot for path table slash table silver. So once you create on this schema, what we have it here is going to create a schema on the lakehouse itself. If you connect to my lakehouse here, then it's going to show me the same, which is the tables and folders. And I should see if I refresh it here, then I can see it here, silver.table here, even though there is no data available because it's just created a schema here. All right. So the next here is we are referring to this one, tables and then sales or silver. For this part, we are using this update here from a data frame, which is we have used on the previous sessions. This one, the data frame here. So the data is going to load into this one, df.update. All right. So delta table.alias silver.mesh and then df.alias silver.updates. If then we are using up this condition, let me minimize this. So sales silver sales order number is already available on that particular table. Then this is going to update the data. If the data is not available on that table, then it's going to insert the data. That's what is mentioned here. When match, update. When not match, insert. So this is the script here where we are differentiating between update and insert record here. So once this is done, it's going to execute the job, and after that we can check if there is any information available there or not. So if you're familiar with SQL, then you have an option here. Either you can execute your direct thing, like you need to call that one, or you can just open up this pane and drag and drop your table into this cell. Then it's going to load up the information like this: sales, select star from, this is the lakehouse name, and then we have a data table name here, limit 10. So once I run this one, and also you can see it is showing up here percentage SQL, and on the right side you can see we have a Spark SQL, but before all this else, it is Python Spark itself, PySpark. So it means we can able to run our SQL statement inside to this code itself by just mentioning this thing, or else we can also manually change from here. Cool. So we see this is the record available on the silver table and it is loaded here. That's it. The first step we have done here, because transforming data from the lake house and then loading up into a silver table here. So what's the next step? The next step here, let's go back to the workspace. And the next step is we need to create another notebook so that we can transform the silver data and split this into multiple different tables for the dimension of creating the concept of star schema. Right now, the result what we have is actually a big fat table. And then here we need to extract the customer name, product name, and also we need to create a date table, date dimension in order to get all this result here. All right, so moving on. So if I open up this notebook here, and also I need to connect to my lake house, which is connected here. And then let's wait for a second. All right. So here what we are doing the first step. So load data from the silver table to the data frame as a starting point to create the gold layer. So we are reading all the data from the silver table into a data frame and showing up the result here. And after that, this is the markdown actually I created here. As you can see, creating hash, double star, creating dimension tables. We have other options to customize that. So once you do so, it's going to show the results like this itself. All right, so I just used two markdown just to show you how this works. And once after it is generated, we have loaded the temporary information onto this silver table to a data frame. You see, it is still taking 20 seconds because initially this first run it is taking a bit time to load the to start the engine. Okay, while this is loading, let's discuss about the next cell here. So the next cell here is a PySpark information. Yeah, this is actually loaded here. So now we have the information into data frame. All right. So here what you are taking up here, again, importing all the necessary libraries here. And after that, we are creating a schema of the dim date gold with the following columns. And then we are using another statement where we are referring this thing to be dim date gold in a data frame. And that has to be, we are just taking the order date from the data frame and also drop the duplicates because we just want a unique order date from that particular column. And also we imported the libraries about column, day of the month, year, date form. This is actually used for Python functions here for the PySpark. And we are converting this order date into month, year, date format based on our desired format here, and then loading those information into a data frame. And finally, we are displaying that information here into the result, which is going to show up the top 10 records here. So this is just about how this schema and result look like so that we can insert it into these tables as the next step. So you can see this is the order date, day, month, year, and with these two formats here. That's cool. And then we need to check for the tables here. We have a table path for this. If the table is already available, then we can insert into that. If the data is available on the table, then we need to update that. So that's why when the table is matched here, when the table is not matched here. You can just pause the video and you can just refer to the link which I have shared on the description to understand how these things work here. All right, this is going to insert the data into the SQL Server table, into this lakehouse table here actually. As I'm familiar with SQL Server, so I'm repeating the SQL Server name itself. So here I'm just now doing the same step for the dim gold customer. It's actually the same, creating a schema, and then we are just doing up the customer name, taking the duplicates, removing the duplicates, only the customer unique names, and then loading that into a data frame. And from that data frame, we are inserting that into a table here. So here, if you want to delete and reinsert something else, then you can also write a SQL statement for this. I've given up here, delete from this table and insert it with the gold. That is also possible, you can do that. Or we can also use the previous statement, like how we did, that we are just updating or deleting. We are just doing the two steps at the same time. Like if I go back to the previous one, we have it here, which is showing up here when match update, when not match insert. So update and insert both of them into the same command. But if you just want to do the insert separate and delete separate, you can also do like that itself. All right, similarly, we are going to do the same thing. So we are going to add the functions here. You can just refer to this document what we are doing up here. And we are generating a customer ID separate column name here. So that's the script which is doing up here. So we are taking just the customer name from that table and then extracting the email ID, first name, last name from that information from that table. And if you want to build a kind of star schema, we need to create dimension and the fact table. That is mandatory. But the relationship between the dimension and fact table, how it has to be? It has to be via numeric. That's the ideal solution, right? Because that works perform fast itself. So in that case, we need to create a customer ID for this each and every time. And when the new data comes in, it has to generate a new row to plus adding up the last record what we have in our data. For example, if you have a 10 records, if a new record comes in, then it has to add 10 plus 1 for the 11, 12, 13, and so on. So that's what it is doing up here on this particular function. It's taking up here. Yeah, so let me run this one. Yeah, this is executed. Yeah, all right. So you can see it is actually taking up this value, reading this table customer goal, and it's taking up the maximum value from that. And then whatever data which comes on the silver table, and it is matching those information and doing up here max ID plus 1. So while inserting this one, it's going to do the same step here. This is what it is doing up on this table. Similarly, we are doing the same thing for the product table. We are now doing up here insert and update. That's totally fine. And what we have, the same logic we are doing up here for the product here. We are just creating the schema first, and then we are loading the duplicates without duplicate information into a data frame. And from that data frame, we are just inserting the data and taking up the number one, I mean the serial numbers, and those serial numbers is going to add up onto the data frame. And from that data frame, we are going to insert or update it into the master table here. All right, so we had done all about this, and now comes to the fact goal. So the fact goal actually, fact sales goal is actually referring to similar thing, which we are creating a schema here first, and then from creating a schema, we are just taking up all the necessary columns from here and adding a relationship between these things, which is a dim customer temporary and dim product table customer table, so that we can just take the IDs from that and insert it into a sales table. That's what we are doing up here, taking up the sales goal as a data frame one, and then joining these two master tables to get the ID information and loading that information into a data frame. And from that data frame, finally, we are going to insert the information into the real table, which is basically the goal table, fact sales goal. So we go down, so you can see these are the tables. Finally, we have dim goal, dim customer goal, dim date goal, dim product goal, and fact sales goal. These are the 4 tables which we have created here, and you can see the results showing up here at the bottom here. So this is the help of creating a notebook on that, and these are the step-by-step process which you can do it here. It is not required to do only in notebook, but notebook perform fast. I have worked on data flow and also used the pipeline for that, SQL script for that, and also in the notebook. Comparing all these 3 things while I'm working on the real project is actually notebook perform faster in order to get the volume of the data. Even if you have a huge number of volume of data, it is recommended to use the notebook instead of data flow Gen 2. All right, so that thing we have. So what's the next step? So if I go back to the workspace or the medallion architecture, I scroll up here. Yeah, we have now this one lakehouse. We have 2 more notebooks here. Now the next thing here, we have a data now. So we need to build a report. So usually whenever you have a notebook, I mean a lakehouse, you will get the 2 different additional items, which is the semantic model default. You can see it on the bracket, and also you will see the SQL analytics support here. So the reason for that is, if I go back to the lakehouse, on the top you can see we have a lakehouse and SQL endpoint. So if you want to do any kind of SQL analytics, then you can make use of that. We are going to cover that in future one. But this is a lakehouse view. This is a SQL endpoint view here. To create a report, we can directly create a report here itself. If I go to the SQL analytics, then we have an option to create a report. But that is not a recommended one to create a report within the default semantic model. The reason is because I will show you here as well. Because it's the direct one table, which is we have it on the lakehouse, and that is also covered with all your domain specific requirement is going to happen over there. So it is not good to create from that. If I look here in the model view, it's going to skew the tables as well as the additional few tables are there, which is actually necessary for the lakehouse thing. It is taking a bit time, so let's wait for that. Yeah, so we have a dim gold, fat gold, everything looks good. But if I go to this one, we have execute request list, execute session history, request history, everything. So these tables, it is not necessary for us for our reporting purpose. For this case, we can create a new semantic model. If you go to reporting, we have a new semantic model. So once you click on that, then this will open up a window and it will show us the list of available tables we have and what we need for our reporting purpose. Here also you see we still have a silver. We don't need a silver for reporting. So we just need only these 4 tables, select the 4 tables and then give it a name, which is the sales demo 02. I'm just giving a name here and choose the workspace where you want to build your report. So I'd like to build it here itself, click on confirm. So once you do so, it's going to create a semantic model, which is actually matching to this one. Whenever you have a data on the semantic model, it's a direct lake mode, so it's going to update automatically here. We have setup also here, automatically update semantic model on this screen. You can also see behind this one, the pop-up window, where also we can set up that if we want to automatically sync or not. So if I go back to this one, you can see here, automatically update semantic model. So it is now automatically updating that. We have also managed default semantic model options. So you want to refresh it here or not, that's the one it's going to show up here. All right. So moving on. So this is, it has opened up my lakehouse here. I mean, the new semantic model and also the relationship, even though we have a model, everything here, we should not have to build the relationship within this default environment. So we have to create it here on the new one where we are going to use that. So because it depends actually. So if you're making the order information report based on order date, so you will connect order and the sales information. But if you want to do it by shipment date, then you can use relationship obviously. But if you are building a different report, so based on your scenario, you're going to have a relationship. So it is good to connect a new semantic model and build all your relationship based on your requirement and then build your report on top of that. So here we can create a new measures and all our rows and calculation group. We cannot create new columns and table because of direct lake here. So mouse over here, you can see the storage mode to be direct lake here. That's the reason. So this is all about we can create and build our reports and Power BI using this medallion architecture where we can connect to bronze as a raw data, silver as a slight fine tuning data, and gold is the main data for us. If you want another level up, then you can also create a platinum for your reference. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like this video, just click on the big thumbs up button. If you're new to this channel or if you haven't subscribed yet, just hit the subscribe button and also press the bell icon to get the latest notifications. But make sure to turn on the notification on your devices. Share it with your friends and colleagues. If you have any queries and feedback, let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Keep learning. See you in the next video.